who to allow inside the crime scene?
Overruled. Last question.
His responsibilities is of allowing anybody into the crime scene, I would assume by the time he got there, that crime scene would have been sealed off. And with the exception of maybe himself going through that crime scene to actually see what was there, I would assume that he would not allow anybody else into that crime scene other than who had already been in there prior to his arrival.
Now, when you got to the location of 875 South Bundy on the night of in the early morning hours of June the 13th, sir, did you see crime scene tape?
Yes, I did.
It was already up.
Yes, it was.
Do you see that in the photograph marked as People's 51?
Yes, I do.
And does that tape appear to be blocking off the traffic on Bundy?
Yes, it is.
Was it blocked off when you got there?
Yes, it was. Both north and southbound traffic had been blocked off.
Can I get the...
Your Honor, this is Exhibit 38.
Do you recognize what's shown in P38, sir?
Yes, this is a photograph of the rear of 875 South Bundy. We're standing on Dorothy Avenue looking northbound through the alley at the rear of that location.
And you see the crime scene tape there?
Yes, I do.
And was it in that position when you appeared in the early morning hours of June the 13th?
Yes, it was.
Were there other police officers and police cars there when you arrived?
Yes, there was several.
What time was it that you and Mr. Detective Furman arrived at 875 South Bundy?
I arrived at that location at 2:10 in the morning of June 13th.
Now, when you arrived there, you indicated earlier, I think, that you met with Sergeant Rossi at the intersection of Dorothy and Bundy.
Yes.
Detective Furman was with you?
Yes.
And you had a conversation with him?
Yes.
What did he talk to you about?
Told me...
Sustained.
Generally, did he tell you what he had seen at the scene there?
Yes, he did.
And described it briefly?
Sustained.
Did he relate to you what he had seen there?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
I then asked for the officer who was the first officer on the crime scene to also tell us what he had learned or what he had been informed of, when Sergeant Rossi asked Officer Risky to walk over.
And what did you do next?
Officer Risky then told me what he had seen and what he had been told and what he had observed.
And then what happened?
I then asked for a preliminary walkthrough of the location, and I asked that Officer Risky do it, since he's the one that knew the most about it.
And was it your understanding that he was the first officer on the scene?
Yes.
All right. What happened after that, after you spoke to Officer Risky?
He then told us that we were going to approach the bodies.
Sustained.
Did he have a conversation with you, sir?
Yes.
Based on what he told you, what did you do?
We approached the bodies from Bundy Avenue itself from the front.
Can I get the...
The appropriate time, Your Honor.
Do you have an appointment, Mr. Cochran?
Maybe first one.
Well, if we do that, we'll shoot up our last 4 minutes. All right, Ms. Clark, continue,
Yes, can
please.
we cut the feed, please?
Yes, it is.
This is People's 42.
Yes, sir. See the photograph that's been marked as People's 42?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us, you said you approached the, you approached the crime scene?
Yes.
Tell us, first of all, you see that walkway?
Yes.
You recognize that?
Yes, that's a walkway that walks from the sidewalk on Bundy to the residence at 875.
And do you recall whether it appeared then as it does now in this photograph?
It appears exactly the same.
Now, how, did you walk on that walkway, sir?
No, I did not.
How is it that you approached the crime scene?
Officer Risky informed, I went the same way.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Officer Risky had a conversation with you,
Yes.
and based on what he told you, sir, how did you approach the crime scene?
I followed Officer Risky to the crime scene, following behind him as he walked across the sidewalk into some shrubbery and grass and dirt area up to where we could view the bodies.
Okay, can we use point measure? If you would watch your monitor, sir, and tell us whether, and direct the pointer, if you could, to show the path that you took.
It's right in that area there.
All right. Is that correct?
A little bit over to the right.
To the right?
Yeah, right in that area.
Okay.
And walked up to that call box area, right there.
All right. If we could place an X, actually. All right.
All right, how about if we put RP up in the upper left-hand corner for Ron Phillips?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Left hand, right hand.
Oh,
Who cares?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
That's right. All right, Ms. Clark, I think this would be an appropriate point.
thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the lunch hour. Detective Phillips, you can step down. Your order to return at 1:45. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. We'll stand in recess until 1:45. Then, counsel, we're going to go straight through to 4. Yeah. Mr. Fairtlow? Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right, let's have the jury, Deputy Higgins. All right, let the record reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel, and that Detective Phillips is on the witness stand. Detective Phillips, good afternoon. You were reminded that you were still under oath. And Ms. Clark, do you wish to resume with your direct examination?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. We have printed this out now, Your Honor. I'd ask that it be marked as People's 42A.
Mark People's 42A, diagram by Detective Phillips.
Now, from that vantage point, okay, from that vantage point, sir, that was indicated there on photograph 42A and in photograph 42, can you tell us what you were able to see?
Yes, I first observed a female lying on her left side in a semi-fetal position, wearing a black dress. I then observed a male Caucasian on his right side, facing more of an east-west direction, that was lying up near a iron gate, gate area that surrounded a little dirt area. I noticed a white envelope, and then I was pointed out where it was pointed out to me where a ski cap of some type was, and a glove was, and also where a beeper was, and a set of keys.
Now, can you tell us, sir, when you looked over towards the body of the male that you've described, what it was you saw in the area of his feet, if anything?
What at his feet was the glove and the hat, the knit cap that were directly below his feet. Not quite at his feet, but more between him and the female was the envelope.
Your Honor, this is going to be Peoples.
43? 43E?
Yes, this is Peoples 43E, Your Honor.
All right.
And would you?
Yes.
Do you recognize what's being shown to you here, sir?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us, is that the body of the male victim you just described?
Yes, it is.
With your laser pointer, I'm going to point to this white object here. Is that the envelope that you observed?
Yes, it is.
And then you indicated close to the feet of Ron Goldman that you saw a knit cap and a dark leather glove.
Yes.
Is that in the area I'm indicating now with the pointer?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Your Honor, this is Peoples 44.
Peoples 44.
If you can look up at the monitor, sir, the screen, I mean, the item I'm circling right now. What's that?
I can't really see it. Looks like the hat, the knit cap.
Okay. Can you look down at, you see where I'm pointing to?
Yes.
Look at your monitor.
Yes, the knit cap.
Okay. And then the item that's just below it on the photograph that I'm circling now?
That would be the glove.
All right, Ms. Clark, if need be, Detective Phillips can step off the witness stand.
Oh, thank you.
It is a difficult angle to see.
Did you observe anything else from your vantage point at that time?
At that particular time, no.
Okay. Now, who was with you as you made those observations?
Officer Risky and Detective Mark Furman.
They were both standing next to you?
We were in a row, or kind of 1, 2, 3 at one time, and then after I took my look, I kind of backed off, allowed Mark Furman to get up closer and take a look, and then we backed out of the area.
By the way, what were you wearing?
A suit, think it was a blue suit.
Like the one you're wearing now?
Yes.
Okay. What was Mark wearing?
He had some, I think he had some black slacks on and a white shirt and a tie.
Was he wearing a jacket?
No, he was not.
Was that uncommon for him?
No, Mark Furman never wears his jacket.
Now, did you have a conversation with Commander Bushy at around that time when you first arrived at the scene?
When I first arrived, and I was talking to Officer Risky, Sergeant Rossi was talking on a cellular telephone, and he handed me the telephone, and the individual on the phone informed me that he was Commander Keith Bushy.
Who's that?
Commander Keith Bushy is the commander of Operations West Bureau, which is the bureau that I work for. West LA is in West Bureau.
And so what does he have command over?
He has command over West Bureau. He's directly underneath Deputy Chief Frankel.
Does that mean that he's over all of the detectives?
Well, he's
In
over
West LA?
he's over the divisions in West Los Angeles, or in West Bureau, which is Wilshire Division, Pacific Division, Hollywood Division, and Wilshire Division in West LA.
And everybody in those divisions?
That's correct.
So he's your boss?
He's one of our highest ranking bosses, yes.
And were you given some instruction with respect to the handling of this case by Commander Bushy?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
Overruled.
Originally, he asked me what I had, what I knew.
Well, the question was, what instruction were you given by Commander Bushy? Not what he asked. What was the instruction given to you?
He gave me two instructions.
Okay.
One instruction was that if it was outside the realm of West Los Angeles being able to investigate this crime, because it was Nicole Simpson, turned out to be the deceased, that I should think about the resources I had available. And the other one was that if it turned out that it did involve O.J. Simpson, as this being his ex-wife or wife, that he did not want Mr. Simpson to be made aware of the death of Nicole in the media, and he wanted to make sure that I notified him in person as a courtesy to him.
Now, what did you mean by the resources? What do you mean by that? Whether West LA had the resources for this case?
Well, I think I was concerned, and he was also concerned, I believe, that if it turned out to be Nicole Simpson, it was going to become a major news media event. It was going to possibly involve O.J. Simpson only as the fact that he was one time her husband. We had his children at West LA Station, and it may become a bigger case than the 4 detectives I have at West LA could handle the proper way, and that possibly we would want to take this case and transfer it downtown to Robbery Homicide Division, who has many more resources than we have.
You're talking about in terms of manpower and in just numbers and quantities of detectives and officers available to you?
Oh, they have a great deal more resources than we have as far as manpower and ability to go and do things.
Person power.
Person power,
Person
detective
power.
power. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
All right, and then he gave you specific instructions to make sure you personally notified Mr. Simpson.
That's the answer, Your Honor.
Sustained.
It's just foundation.
He's already testified to it.
Now, did you have a conversation with Officer Risky when you responded to the scene?
Yes, I did.
Did he explain to you what brought him to that location to begin with?
Yes, he did.
What kind of a call it was?
Yes.
And what was it that he explained to you?
Seriously, Your Honor.
Goes to explain subsequent conduct.
Overruled.
He told me that he had arrived at that location responding to a 459 call across the street, I believe at 873 or 874 South Bundy. And it,
What's a 459 call?
Shouldn't that be a limiting instruction in that objection is legal, but that's a limiting instruction, it's not serious.
It's not very consequential at this point, counsel. It's not. I don't think a limiting instruction is necessary at this point. Proceed. It's just to explain subsequent conduct after talking to Risky.
And what is a 459 call?
It's a penal code section for burglary.
And so Officer Risky told you that he'd received a burglary suspect call from 874 South Bundy?
Yes,
And that was a 911 call?
yes.
So did you go to investigate the source of that call yourself?
Later on that morning, I did.
And did you speak to the person at 874 South Bundy who had called 911?
Yes.
Who was that?
The lady's name was Elsie Tisterat. Tisterat? I don't know how to spell her name.
Tister?
Tister.
And you had a conversation with her?
Yes, I did.
And did you confirm that she was the one who called Officer Risky?
She's the
Not
one.
Officer Risky, I meant made the 459 call, 911.
Yes.
Now, why did you want to go and talk to her?
I went over there to find out if, in fact, that she did make a phone call, if there was, in fact, a source of this burglary call over there, and exactly what transpired that made her make this original call.
Were you trying to determine whether or not it was related to the homicides across the street or a separate incident?
Well, I wanted to find out if she had witnessed anything or had heard anything or what she did here, since she's the one that made the call that brought the police there to begin with.
And what did you determine?
I determined that she never opened her door, that she had originally heard a barking dog and called West LA desk, and they told her to call the animal pound. And then later on, there was some knocking at her door, and she became alarmed on it because of the late evening hour. And I believe she told me she looked through the peephole and didn't see anybody, and so she became frightened and called 911 and told them there was some burglars or prowlers at her front door.
And what did you determine with respect to the identity of the persons knocking on her door?
Well, it was right after that I walked one house north and met another individual over there who I do not know his name, an elderly gentleman, who basically told me that he had...
Sustained.
You had a conversation with another neighbor?
Yes, I did.
And based on that conversation, what did you conclude?
I concluded that the burglars that Elsie had called...
Overruled.
I determined that the burglar or individual that Elsie had called on was in fact an individual that had gone to the next house north and asked that gentleman to make a 911 call because he had discovered some bodies across the street. And he had admitted that he was over at Elsie's house banging on her door.
Now, did you happen to notice a dog anywhere near the location of 875 South Bundy when you arrived?
Yes, I did.
And what did you, where did you see that dog?
The dog was tied up to a post on the northeast corner of Bundy and Dorothy. It was a white and partially brown Akita.
And it was tied up to a post near the location?
Post or a telephone pole or a lamp stand of some type.
You got a People's 40A.
In People's 40A, sir, do you see a dog depicted there?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us if that appears to be the dog you saw tied to the telephone post near 875 South Bundy on the early morning hours of June 13th?
It appears to be the same dog.
Now, did you happen to notice whether there were, on the walkway leading from the sidewalk to the front steps of 875 South Bundy, where you had earlier described a lot of blood, can you tell us whether you could see any shoe prints on that walkway in the blood?
I saw shoe prints leading north or west away from the body of the female, westbound towards the north side of the house.
Did you see those shoe prints in the front walkway that led down to the sidewalk?
No, I did not.
Where did you see those shoe prints? The ones you're referring to, the bloody shoe prints you're referring to?
They were at the top of the stairs, 3 steps up from where the body was, and then led off in a westerly direction.
Leading down towards the rear gate and the rear alley?
Yes, along the north side of the house, residence.
Now, in the front walkway that we're describing now, is that a tiled walkway? You know what I mean? Blocks,
Yes, it is.
squares, okay. And that walkway that leads from the bottom of the front stairs down to the sidewalk in front of the location, the sidewalk running in front of Bundy.
That's legal.
Haven't heard all the question.
Yeah, the question.
Haven't heard all the question yet.
That front walkway that leads down to the sidewalk, you indicated earlier you saw blood in it. Did you see any paw prints
Yes, I did.
in that walkway?
Well, they were more towards the bottom of the walkway and then leading down the sidewalk on Bundy in a south direction towards Dorothy.
And how far did you see those paw prints continue?
They continued down Dorothy in a southerly direction, and then they went westbound on Dorothy and then faded out.
Did someone point those out to you?
Officer Risky did.
All right, after you made your first view of the crime scene and you saw the bodies of both victims, what did you do next?
I backed out of the planted area that we were in, and Officer Risky walked us around to a walkway which was just north of where the male body was lying, in a small area there, and we viewed the bodies from over in that location also.
Cut the feed, Your Honor.
P46. Please.
All right, sir, do you recognize the location shown there?
Yes, I do.
And what's that?
That's the front entrance to 875 South Bundy.
And do you see the crime scene tape in front of the location?
Yes, I do.
Is that the position it was in when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Now, that front walkway, excuse me, is that front walkway that is shown in this photograph, is that the one where you saw the bloody paw prints?
The bloody paw prints are started towards the bottom portion of that walkway and led out into the sidewalk.
And then do they proceed to the left as you face this photograph?
Well, most of them led to the right, and that's all I saw at that time, southbound.
As you face the photograph?
It'd be to my left.
Okay. Now, you indicated an area that you went to examine the bodies from the north of the victims?
Yes.
Can you see it here?
Yes. It's a little farther to the right, right in there.
Uh-huh. And did you walk up, did you walk,
I'd like the witness to tell us where the markers started going up there.
I think the witness has already testified to it.
Ms. Clark, proceed.
Yes. Detective Phillips, did you walk up behind the bodies on that north side of them?
Yes, I did.
Can you direct the pointer to describe your path, please?
Just continue straight. Right about there.
Now, were you behind the, was there a gate or a fence there that you were behind?
Yes, there's a wrought iron gate, wrought iron fence.
From that vantage point, what were you able to see? What side of Ron Goldman were you on?
We were to his backside.
And what were you able to observe from that location?
I was able to observe the beeper and the keys that Officer Risky had told me about that we could not see very well from the other location. And I could also see the glove and the hat from that location a little bit better.
And who was with you at that time?
Officer Risky, Detective Furman, and myself.
We have RP in the left-hand corner. This was 46A, Your Honor.
All right, 46A.
Your Honor, this is P number 59, and you'll need to cut the feeding order.
Can you see in this photograph, sir, the area that you described where you stood to observe the scene from the north side of the gate?
Yes, I can.
And can we... If you would direct the pointer to the area.
It's on the other side of the fence, right back up in that area there.
Okay.
Well, should be over more towards that tree is at. No, right there,
Right there?
right there.
Could you please put the initials RP? And this would be 59A? B?
59B.
B. And then we do that on the back.
Now, Your Honor, this is People's 43A. And again, the feed will need to be cut on this photo.
Do you see this, you see what's depicted in this photograph? You're looking at your monitor, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell us, sir, if you can see the paw prints that you were earlier referring to?
Yes, I do.
Now those, you see splotches on this, of blood, what appears to be blood on this walkway? I'm going to circle it. If you can't see it, you can step down.
Yes, I do.
And another one over here? And
Yes.
up here? All right. You were there, sir. Tell us what they appeared to, what they looked like to you.
They were just pools of blood.
What did you do after you observed from the location north of the victims?
We were told that you could get a better look.
Sustained. What did you do, not what you were told?
Walked around southbound on Bundy, and then walked westbound on Dorothy, and then northbound into the alley to the rear of the residence at 875 South Bundy.
Now, who was there? Who went on this walk?
Officer Risky, Sergeant Rossi, Mark Furman, and myself. And there may have been a Sergeant Kuhn, but I'm not sure.
And did you walk into the alley then?
Yes?
Where did you go next?
Walked northbound in the alley to the rear of 875 South Bundy.
And where did you enter? Did you enter through the garage, or how did you go in?
When we originally entered into the house, we went through the garage.
Now, before you entered the garage, did you make any observations outside in the driveway?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
I noticed a Jeep parked in the driveway with the passenger doors semi-ajar. Looked like it hadn't been shut all the way. I noticed some change in the driveway and also a couple of droplets of blood.
P52.
Do you recognize what's shown there, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That's the rear of 875 South Bundy.
Now, did Officer Risky point out to you that the garage door was now open?
Yes, he did.
Did he explain to you in what condition he originally found the garage door when he first appeared on the scene?
Yes, he did.
And was it open or closed when it was...
Sustained.
Did he explain to you how the garage door came to be opened?
Yes.
Now, where, if you can recall, did you see the change and the blood drop on the driveway?
It was to the left of the Jeep, I believe.
Your Honor, exhibit number 48K.
Excuse me, to the left of the Jeep as we face it now?
Yes.
No, give me the perspective. Okay, you've seen that photograph. I'm going to get a perspective shot for you.
This is 48J,
And 48J. And now a close-up on the photograph.
48I.
Now, do you recognize the close-ups and the perspective shot of what you've just seen here?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's the change in the blood drop that I observed by the Jeep.
Did you make those observations before going in through the garage?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So your first entry was in through the garage, is that right? Or was it through the rear gate?
The first entry I went in was through the rear gate with a Sergeant Rossi. He wanted to show me something.
And when you walked through the rear gate, who went with you?
Just myself and Sergeant Rossi.
And what happened to Officer Risky and Detective Furman?
They stayed out in the driveway by the Jeep.
What happened when you went through the rear gate with Sergeant Rossi?
We walked eastbound a portion of the way until he pointed out some faded footprints, what appeared to be faded footprints, and then said he had not gone any farther than that. And I said, well, let's go back out and get the rest of them. And we went back out. We didn't go any farther.
Okay, those footprints, how were you able to see them?
With the aid of a flashlight, Sergeant Rossi had one and I had one.
Did they appear to be, what color did they appear to be?
The footprints appeared to be in a red stain.
Did they appear to be blood to you?
Objection to that, Your Honor, possible.
Overruled. He's the homicide detective. He can answer that question.
It appeared to be a red stain that resembled blood, yes.
Now, before you entered through the rear gate, sir, was anything pointed out to you to be careful of?
Well, I was pointed out some blood that was on the top rung of the rear gate and also on the bottom rung of the rear gate, and then also at a latch on the rear gate.
And so, did you touch the gate?
No, I did not.
And was there any other blood pointed out to you near that area of the rear gate?
I believe there was another drop of blood or two in the vicinity of that rear gate
On the ground?
on the ground.
This is exhibit 48, I believe H. No, I'm sorry, 48G.
No, give me a perspective.
48, I believe, F.
Okay. You see the marker in the photograph,
Yes, I do.
and the gate that is depicted in this photograph, which gate is that?
That's the gate that leads out to the alley at the rear of 875 Bundy.
The marker that you see there, is that a location that you were discussing just now when you talked about a blood drop on the
Yes.
ground?
Yes,
Was that pointed out to you before you went through the rear gate?
after I went through the rear gate.
And did you avoid stepping on it?
Yes, I did.
Were you using your flashlight the entire time that you walked down the walkway?
Yes, I was.
You indicated then that Sergeant Rossi, you got to the point just before you were at the bloody shoe prints on the walkway, then you turned around?
And we returned back to the alley, yes.
Then what happened?
I then entered the residence through the garage with Officer Risky leading the way and Detective Furman and I following him, and Sergeant Rossi stayed outside.
And what did you do when you got into the residence? First of all, back up, let me ask you, how did you get into the residence?
Walked through the open garage door and walked to the right side of a white sports car that was parked in the driveway, or in the garage, and then went through the door that leads from the garage into the house.
And what did you see when you got inside the house?
The first thing I noticed was some stairs that led up to another level in the house, and we started to ascend those stairs.
And tell us what you observed when you first entered the door.
The first into the door, Officer Risky pointed out a ice cream cup that was positioned on a banister about 4 feet inside the residence from the back door. And he also pointed out a spoon that had fallen or been misplaced or something that was to the left of that banister lying on one of the steps leading down into another room.
Okay. What else did you see?
At that time, just the ice cream and the spoon.
Okay. And then what?
Walked up into the kitchen area of the residence, walked through the kitchen area, into the living room, out the living room, and to a front door that I was told that had been found open.
Sustained. Curious to disregard the last comment that
You
he
went
was told the door was found open.
You went upstairs and you went through a kitchen area?
Yes.
Now, what was the purpose of your going into the house at this time?
Going into the house because Officer Risky was going to show me a better location to view the crime scene from.
And did you come out, when you came to the front door, was it open or closed?
It was open.
And were you informed of the manner in which it was first found by the first officer on the scene, Officer Risky?
Yes.
And then you walked through the open door?
Yes.
And what did you see?
Saw footprints that appeared to be going in a westbound direction away from the actual crime scene and the main crime scene, past the front door and along the alley or along the walkway that I had walked partially up to before.
Okay. Did those shoe prints angle in towards the front door at
No.
any time?
Or will.
No.
They appeared to go straight past it.
Yes.
And how many of them did you observe, sir? If you recall.
I don't recall how many I saw.
Okay. How many how many sets of shoe prints did you see?
Different sets.
Mm-hmm. Different sets.
They appeared to all be the same.
One set of shoe prints?
Yes.
Now, did you see any shoe prints down between the bodies of Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Down on the steps is the only place I observed them. I didn't get that close to actually observe if there was any around the bodies.
Your Honor, you're going to need to cut the feed. This is 45B.
All right.
Okay, do you see one of the shoe prints that you saw that night from the vantage point of the top of the landing?
Yes, I do.
And if you can see it on the screen, I'm going to point it out with the laser. Is that?
Yes.
That's one of them? Okay. Move up. Next shot up.
Okay, 45C.
Do you recall seeing what I'm circling right now, if you can look?
Yes.
And what were did you see those that night?
Yes, I did.
What did they appear to be?
Footprints. Some type of red stain that appeared to be blood.
Bare footprints?
No, shoe prints, I'm sorry.
45D.
Do you see what I'm circling on the screen now, sir?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing these shoe prints?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And were those at the top of the landing, sir?
Yes, they were.
And who pointed them out to you?
Officer Risky?
And after he pointed them out to you, did you go over and step in them?
No, I did not.
You avoided them?
Yes, I did.
Did either yourself, Detective Furman, or Officer Risky go and step in those shoe prints?
No, we did not.
45E.
Can you see what I'm circling here, sir?
Yes?
Do you recall seeing these things that I'm circling that night?
Well, these appeared to be the same shoe prints leading westbound out that walkway.
45F.
And once again, you see what I'm circling?
Yes?
Same thing, those bloody shoe prints?
Yes?
You saw them that night?
Yes?
45G.
Were you able to ever examine them closely, sir, by shining your flashlight and looking closely at these shoe prints?
I never examined them closely, no.
Did you ever see one as close up as you're seeing on the screen here?
No.
Now, from the vantage point of the top of the landing, were you able to see the crime scene area where the victims and the evidence that you've described previously was more clearly?
Yes?
And after making those observations from the top of the landing, what did you do?
I then followed Officer Risky westbound out the north pathway to the north of the residence to the rear gate and exited out the rear gate.
As you did so, did Officer Risky point anything out to you?
Yes, he pointed out droplets of what appeared to be blood and also these footprints until they faded out.
Now, did Officer Risky explain to you what he had done when he went inside the house earlier?
I don't understand your question.
Did Officer Risky tell you what he had done at the scene before you arrived?
As far as the inside of the house?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he tell you about going through the house and what he had done with any persons he found inside?
Overruled.
Yes.
You said you walked down the walkway. He pointed out blood drops to you.
Yes.
Did you observe those blood drops next to any of the bloody shoe prints that you've described to us?
Yes.
And to what side of the bloody shoe prints were they?
To the left.
P48A.
48A.
Okay, you can see the item 112
Yes.
and the area I'm circling right there. Is that one of those bloody shoe prints you were talking about?
Yes.
All right, and the item 112 close up?
P48B.
Do you recall seeing blood dropped, and that appears to be to the left of the shoe print that you earlier described?
Yes.
This one. Now, let me approach.
Sure.
Go ahead.
With the report. All right, thank you, counsel. You may proceed.
Objection was overruled, Your Honor.
Yes, it is. Proceed. Sometimes they're sustained,
Sometimes they're overruled.
sometimes they're overruled.
Let's make sure you're all there.
P48A.
Now, are you able to see in this photograph all of the bloody shoe prints that you were describing?
I don't see all of them, no.
How many of the bloody shoe prints that you described are you able to see in this photograph?
I can only see in this photograph maybe one.
The one that we've earlier circled at the bottom of the photograph?
That's right.
Okay. As you walked down the walkway, were you using your flashlight, sir?
Yes,
Officer Risky was leading,
yes,
and was he pointing these things out to you?
yes.
Where was Detective Furman?
I believe Detective Furman was following me. I think it was Risky, then myself, and then Officer Furman.
But it was all three of you.
Yes, we were walking in a single file.
Did you avoid the blood drops and the shoe prints?
Sustained.
Did you step in the blood drops and the shoe prints?
No,
And did you exit through the rear gate?
yes, I did.
What happened next? Oh, let me back up, sir. Let me ask you something. Did those bloody shoe prints continue all the way down the walkway to the rear gate?
No, they did not.
Did they stop at some point?
Oh, well, briefly.
I can't recall the exact location where they faded out, but it was not quite halfway, I don't believe, between the front and the back. I don't recall where the last one that I saw was.
By the time you exited through the rear gate, were you able to see any more bloody shoe prints?
No,
Did you see any in the rear driveway?
no.
What did you do after you exited through the rear gate?
We re-entered re-entered the house, and Officer Risky walked us through the residence to give us a basic layout of the residence.
Now, at that point, did you go through all of the rooms?
Yes,
Did you go back through the kitchen area?
yes.
Tell us what you saw.
Went back through the kitchen area. I didn't observe anything at that time. Then we went into the living room area, and I noticed some candles on a table.
Were they lit?
Yes,
Were these, what, do you remember how big these candles were?
I don't know how big they were, no.
But they were still burning.
Yes,
And where is the living room in relation to the kitchen?
the living room's in the front portion of the house. The kitchen would be more or less in the middle of the house. And I think there's a dining area of some type between the kitchen and the living room.
And after you looked in the living room and the kitchen, sir, did you see any evidence of ransacking?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any blood?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any leaves tracked inside the house?
No,
Were there leaves outside the house around the bodies of the victims?
yes.
Did you see, let's strike that. Where did you go next?
I then went upstairs into the master bedroom where I observed the television on and a bed unmade. And then went into a master bathroom where I noticed a couple of candles also on a bench type area behind the bathtub. I believe it was west of the bathtub. Then exited that master bathroom and walked down another hallway into two rooms that I was told was the rooms of the children.
And in those locations, sir, did you see any signs of a struggle or fight?
No,
Did you see drawers pulled open?
no,
Did you see any blood?
no,
Did you see any items of jewelry or property thrown on the ground?
no.
And what'd you do next?
Then exited the residence.
And who was with you at this time?
Officer Risky and Detective Furman and myself.
Okay. And how did you exit?
Through the garage door, out the garage, back into the alley.
And who did you see when you got out of the house?
When I exited the residence and walked to the alley, I was met by my commanding officer, Lieutenant Frank Spangler.
Was there anybody with him?
There was a couple of policemen standing there with him. I think a short time after that, Captain Connie Dial showed up.
Was Sergeant Rossi back there as well?
Yes, he was.
Now, Lieutenant Spangler, is he your direct boss?
Yes, he is.
And did you receive some information at that time, sir, concerning who would be handling this case?
Yes, I did.
Who'd you get that from?
Sergeant Rossi.
And what did you learn?
I learned that I was supposed to turn this case over to robbery homicide as per Chief Frankel's.
Who's Chief Frankel?
He is the chief of West Bureau. He is the one step above Commander Bushy.
And so it was Chief Frankel's order that the case be handed over?
Sustained.
I'm sorry?
Sustained.
After you received that information, what did you do?
I then made a telephone call on my cellular phone to Detective Headquarters Division, which is the central detective facility for the Los Angeles Police Department during morning watch, and asked that they put me in touch with Captain Gartland, who is the commanding officer of Robbery Homicide Division.
And did you speak to Captain Gartland?
Yes, I did.
And how was it you were making these phone calls, sir?
On a cellular telephone?
You had it with you?
Yes.
And after speaking to Captain Gartland, what did you do?
Then either made or received another phone call from a Lieutenant John Rogers, who also worked Robbery Homicide Division, and was informed at that time, actually Captain.
Sustained. What did you do? Not what you were told. Next question.
You were informed by who, sir? You were told something by who?
Lieutenant Rogers, John Rogers.
And based on what he told you, what did you do?
Waited for another phone call.
Did you get another phone call?
Yes.
From?
We got a call back from John Rogers, Lieutenant Rogers.
Did you have another conversation with him?
Yes.
Who is Lieutenant Rogers, sir?
Lieutenant Rogers is one of the lieutenants that works out of Robbery Homicide Division that's in charge of the Homicide Special or Homicide Major unit.
And the Homicide Major or Homicide Special unit is what?
It's two entities out of Robbery Homicide Division that handle specialized homicide cases.
So those are detectives that handle specialized homicide cases?
Yes.
And is Lieutenant Rogers, he was their boss?
He was their supervisor, yes.
Supervisor. All right, and did you say Lieutenant Rogers called you back?
Yes.
And did you give him some information?
Yes.
What was that?
I informed him of the information I had received about the double homicides and who may be involved in the double homicides as far as Nicole Brown Simpson, and that she was the ex-wife or current wife of O.J. Simpson, and that Captain Gartland requested that his unit take it over.
And what were you given some instruction at that time?
Yes.
And what was that?
Object,
This just explains.
Overruled.
I was informed at that time that that investigation was no longer my responsibility, that it was now going to be handled and investigated by Robbery Homicide Division, and we were to do no more further action at that scene.
And after having received that information, sir, what did you do?
I walked back into the residence and informed Detective Furman, and I believe there was a police officer with him, that the case now belonged to Robbery Homicide. It was no longer our investigative responsibility, and that we were going to leave the residence and go back out to Dorothy and Bundy and wait the arrival of the Robbery Homicide detectives.
So you notified the uniformed officer and Detective Furman who were inside the house?
Yes.
And did they then come out with you?
Yes.
And where did you go?
I walked back southbound in the alley to Dorothy, and then back out to Dorothy and Bundy, where the police cars were parked and the other supervisors were standing around.
So at that point, was there anyone left in the scene?
Not in the crime scene itself, no. The perimeter was still established.
And by the perimeter, you mean?
We had officers north and south of Bundy, and we had them on north and south of the alley, protecting the crime scene, that no one would enter that location other than police officers.
So why did you do that?
The integrity of the crime scene. It was no longer our responsibility. It was best for us to now leave the crime scene, go back out and wait for their arrival and see if they had any instructions on what they wanted us to do, since it was now their case.
So what were your duties at that point with respect to the crime scene at 875 South Bundy?
My responsibilities at that time ceased, as all of West LA detectives ceased. It was no longer our responsibility to do anything about that crime scene.
Nothing? You could just walk away and leave it?
Well, we weren't going to walk away and leave it. We were going to wait for the arrival of the robbery homicide detectives to give them the information that we had, give them the notes that Mark Furman had taken, and have a short discussion with them about what we had seen, what we had done, so they could have their, be brought up to date. But as far as actually investigating anything at the crime scene, that was finished.
Did you have any duty to keep it secure while you were waiting for them?
It was always secure.
While you were waiting for them?
Yes.
Did you... Can you tell us, sir, why it is that you stopped doing any work or any investigating at that scene while you were waiting for the robbery homicide detectives to appear?
Overruled.
Well, because of the integrity of the crime scene. When we walked through the crime scene and we were taking notes and doing things, it was our investigation. We were preparing to take part. We were preparing to do things. At the time it was taken away from me, that was all ceased because it was now going to be under the direction of another homicide unit who may work a little differently than I do, or a little differently than the detective who was there doing it. They should be able to start at the beginning of their crime scene investigation and take it from there.
Now, is that an established procedure or policy? Is that a routine thing? When a new set of detectives is assigned to a scene, that the first detectives on the scene stop all work?
It all depends on the timing. If we had already been into it for an hour or two, then no, it wouldn't have happened that way. But since we had done absolutely nothing other than just a cursory walkthrough of the crime scene, I had only been there approximately 30 minutes and had done virtually nothing as far as that crime scene was concerned. Then yes, it was my responsibility to pull my people out so robbery homicide would have as clean and untouched crime scene as possible to begin their investigation.
Now, what about this reassignment to robbery homicide division? This was a case in West LA, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And it was reassigned to robbery homicide division?
Yes, it was.
Has that ever happened before?
Overruled.
Yes, it has.
And why, on previous occasions, has it happened, if you know?
Overruled.
That each case has its own merit. Some of the cases are taken away from us after the preliminary crime scene is done. Some of them are taken away from us 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks after the crime occurs. Some are taken away immediately.
I don't think the question was when. I think the question was why, wasn't it?
Yes, it was why. Thank you, Ron.
Different crime scenes are taken away from us for different reasons.
In this particular case, what was the reason?
Haven't we talked about this already?
Have we?
Covered this already?
I thought so.
Have we?
More resources?
That was one. Was that the reason?
Yes.
I won't ask again. Okay. And has that been a reason in previous cases as well, why cases have been reassigned to robbery homicide?
It's irrelevant to this case.
How'd you feel about losing this case to another set of detectives, sir?
Didn't bother me at all. I mean, I was disappointed in the fact that we had all gotten up after an hour and a half sleep. We'd gone out there and we'd had an investigation that we were going to take part in. But it certainly, at the time, appeared to me to be the correct call. I had no problem with it, and in fact, agreed with it.
All right, so there you were on the scene. You said you got there at about 2:10 in the morning. When you first arrived at the scene, did you call the coroner?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because that's not what I do, and that's not generally what is done when you first arrive at the crime scene. You first arrive at the crime scene and you talk.
He's asking us to call the coroner.
Did not.
I said, why not?
Why not? He can explain the answer. Overruled.
You have to originally find out what you have, and whether suspect's in custody, not in custody, find out just about the crime scene itself, find out a little bit about the deceased, find out about your crime scene, walk through your crime scene, see what kind of evidence you have. There's a lot of different things that you have to get in your own mind before you even start to figure out what you're going to do.
And why is that? Why do you
Yeah.
need to know more about your crime scene and examine everything before you have the coroner in there?
Well, you have to have a plan of action. Number one, what you're going to do, and once the coroner gets there, if you're not ready for the coroner is going to stand around doing nothing until you are ready for him, because you're certainly not going to allow the coroner into a crime scene until you're through measuring every item, photographing every item, fingerprinting every item, examining everything you have at your crime scene before you ever allow the coroner in there, and that could take hours before you ever have time or ever able to do that.
So, so if the coroner gets in there, could evidence be moved or lost that before it gets a chance to be documented?
Well, it could be. We would never let the coroner in until we were through with our initial crime scene, until we were through with our crime scene,
For that reason?
for that exact reason.
Now, whose duty is it to notify the coroner to arrive at the scene? In general?
In general, at a homicide scene, it's the homicide investigator who's assigned to that crime would be the one that notifies the coroner.
Now, about what time was it that you received final word that the case was going to be reassigned to Robbery Homicide Division?
I believe it was 2:39 in the morning of June 13th.
And at some point, did you attempt to, or ask permission to make notification to the coroner?
Yes, I did.
At what time?
It was about 10 minutes or 5 minutes to 3 that morning. I made a statement that I was going to notify the coroner.
And who did you make that statement to, sir?
Lieutenant Spangler, my commanding officer.
And what was his response to that?
You're saying.
Overruled.
Told me not to.
And why not?
That's hearsay.
You're saying.
He gave you, but I take it he gave you a reason.
Yes, he did. He gave me an order.
And what did you do after you received that order, sir?
I did not call the coroner.
Okay. And what did you do?
Went out to Bundy and Dorothy and waited for the arrival of the robbery homicide detectives.
Who were the robbery homicide detectives assigned to the case?
Phil Van Adder and Tom Lang.
Prior to that night, sir, had you ever met them before?
Never met either one of those detectives before.
So that was the first time you ever saw them.
That's correct.
Who got there first?
Phil Van Adder.
And when he got there, did you have a conversation with him?
Yes, I did.
In general terms, did you tell him what you had seen at the crime scene
Yes.
and what you had learned from the first officer on the scene?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
I took Phil Van Adder up to the crime scene, the same route that I had been taken up to prior, and showed him the bodies.
Now, when you had the conversation with Lieutenant Spangler, was Detective Furman with you?
In regards to the coroner's office?
Right.
No, I believe he was inside the house when that was going on.
With the uniformed officer?
Yes.
And then when you were waiting for the robbery homicide detectives to show up, was he with you then?
Yes, he was.
Out in the intersection?
Yes.
And when Phil Van Adder appeared, was Detective Furman with you there in the intersection?
Yes.
And did you take when you took Detective Van Adder up to the Bundy crime scene, did Detective Furman go with you?
Yes, he did.
Can you describe for us the path that you took with Detective Van Adder and Detective Furman?
Oh, well, no, we're with Van Adder now.
The exact same route that I had taken with Officer Risky before,
Meaning,
across the sidewalk into the planted area where the bushes and leaves and grass is, and up to that corner spot, and viewed the bodies.
did you point things out to Detective Van Adder?
Yes, I did.
And just to save us some time, you pointed out the same evidence to him that you've described seeing to us.
Yes.
Then what did you do?
I exited that location the same way, and then walked Van Adder around to the rear of 875 South Bundy.
And at the rear of the location, what did you do there?
Showed him the Jeep, the change, and the blood drop, and then entered into the garage, went into the residence, walked out the front door, stood in the exact same location I'd stood before, and showed him the crime scene from up above the 3 steps.
And did you point out the evidence from that vantage point as well?
Yes, I did.
Then what'd you do?
Then walked him westbound through the north walkway to the rear of the residence, the same route that I had taken prior, pointing out the shoe prints and pointing out the blood drops.
And again, did you take care not to step in those blood drops and shoe prints?
Yes, I did.
And when you got to the rear gate area, after you walked to the end of the walkway, did you point anything out at that location?
Yes, I pointed out the 3 areas on the gate that had been pointed out to me where blood was.
Okay, and were you and Detective Furman and Van Adder all walking together along that walkway?
We were walking in single file.
Did you walk out the rear gate at that point?
Yes.
Where'd you go then?
Went back out to Bundy and Dorothy.
Did you point out the bloody paw prints going south on Bundy from the front walkway and around to the corner of Dorothy to Detective Van Adder?
Yes, I did.
And then what did you do?
We stood in that intersection again, waiting for his partner to show up, Detective Tom Lang, who showed up approximately 25 minutes later.
And where did he contact you, sir?
At Dorothy and Bundy in the middle of the intersection.
What did you do when Detective Lang arrived?
First of all, he walked up to his partner, Van Adder. They had a short conversation, and then Van Adder pointed out me to him and introduced me to him and said that Phillips can fill you in on what happened and also walk you through the crime scene.
Okay. And is that what you did?
Yes?
Did you take Detective Lang up through the same steps that you've just described with Detective Van Adder?
The exact same steps.
Okay. So then when you went out the rear gate with Detective Lang, did you take him back into the residence again?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you did that, where in the house did you take him?
Took him throughout the residence that I had gone through and showed him the master bedroom and the master bath and the kids' bedrooms and the living room, and pointed out the candles to him.
And then did you exit the residence with him?
Yes?
Okay. Now that walkthrough that you took him on through the interior of the house, was that meant to be a detailed investigation at that point?
No, it was a very cursory, quick walkthrough just to give them an overview of what I had been told, what I had seen myself.
And by what means did you exit the residence at that time?
Exited through the garage and out into the alley again.
Where'd you go then?
Back out to Bundy and Dorothy.
And when you got out to Dorothy and Bundy, who did you see?
Well, there was several police officers out there. It was kind of a grouping of individuals, command staff, supervisors, detectives. Everybody was just kind of gathered around right there.
And who did you specifically go to see at that point?
Well, at that time, I took Lang back to his partner, Van Adder, who was standing there with Furman.
Did you have a discussion at that point?
Well, at that time, the four of us kind of broke away from that group and walked over to the front of the Bundy location out in the middle of the street and viewed the crime scene from out in the middle of the street. I think Van Adder and Lang were asking us a couple of questions about the call across the street, the 459 call, and I believe I pointed out the house where that call had come from and the house just north of that, giving them another overview of where locations were and where people lived.
Did you want to take a break now?
We're going to go straight through. Ladies and gentlemen, the plan today, since we're breaking early at 4 o'clock, is to go straight through to 4 o'clock. However, if there's a need to stop, feel free to raise your hand and let me know. All right. Ms. Clark.